Okay, welcome to Advanced i2b2 305. So basically, at the end of this 3-hour tutorial, you'll have a good understanding of the server side, the client side. We're going to create a web client. We're going to create an actual i2b2 cell that's going to be communicated from that client. So we'll go a little bit over. So we'll go a little bit over like i2b2, a little bit over VM, the technologies that are used within the software and within the VM, and then we'll jump right into Eclipse using the creating the server and then creating the client, and then we'll test it out and we'll have a working version. So okay, so the dark blue cells, the project management, the ontology, the file repository, the identity management, and the workflow, are the core i2b2 cells. All of them communicate back and forth using web services. Because of web services, it doesn't actually have to be in the same machine. It could be on a different server, it could be on a different continent. It just needs, it connects through standard HTTP calls. The NLP one right here is kind of what we're going to be creating today. We're going to be creating a pseudo using Java regular expressions. So think of this as your cell, okay? And then we use some access to for the web services and JBoss for the J2E extensions. So, a little bit about VMware. So VMware allows you to run multiple operating systems on a single hardware, and that's what I had you guys download earlier was a VM. So it has a complete i2b2 instance, the server, the client, all the web tools that are needed. That's okay. So on the i2b2 website, there's this tutorial that you just downloaded. This tutorial, and then we actually have another VMware that we've been using for a while. It's like 1.3. This is just basically the difference between the two. We all have the i2b2 installed. We both have Oracle Express Edition. We both have Java installed. But the big difference is on the tutorial we have Firefox, GNOME, Eclipse, and SQL Developer, which is it's Oracle. It's part of the Oracle suite. It lets you query into the Oracle database. Due to Windows licensing, you have to install Linux, and Linux X Windows or Windows environment is called no. So okay, so what did we install? So we have the user interface, which is the GNOME. Eclipse, which is the Java IDE for developing the software. The Oracle Express Edition, which is a full Oracle that you do queries, load data into it. There's a limitation of it with, we're using 10G, which is like, I think the limitation is like 4 gigs of data space. But for 133 patients, that's enough. We also installed the Java and Log4j and Firefox was also installed so that we can test our cell, and then JBoss and plus i2b2. So, so we kind of another pretty slide about the VMware. Okay, so a little bit. I'll just go over which of the J2E standards we're going to actually use. So the CRC does stuff with EJBs and Java messaging, JNS. So that's within this enterprise business. And then we also use a JNDI and JDBC for all the cells. The JDBC is what connects up to the database, whether it's just SQL Server or Oracle. And then the JNDI is the naming that connects when you label it in the DS file, which we'll look at later, how it communicates back and forth between the rest of the Java code and i2b2. So then JBoss is the application server that allows you that you install i2b2 on top of. So you install like JBoss, and then on top of that. Oh, okay. So you have JBoss installed, and then on top of that you install Access 2 for the web services, and then you create these AAR files. That is what's the next layer down, which does the communication and has all the business logic. So a little bit about the JBoss structure, and then so when you when you install JBoss, the zip file like 4.2.2, it will break down into and if you look in that directory, the bin directory has like all the starting up JBoss, shutting it down. The lib has all the core JBoss stuff. In here is where we do most of our work. So in the comp directory, the server default comp, this is where you would see directories like CRC app or ONT app. This is where the ontology of the CRC has their property files and any components that are needed for those like the CRC or the ontology. The deploy directory is the other important one. The deploy directory has where we actually deploy the server into. So in there, there's a directory called i2b2.war, which is the access to that you unzip it. It's a war file or a zip file. And then in there is where you put the AAR files, and this is where we'll be putting our files. Any kind of files that are kind of globally used by all of them would be in the lib directory. An example of that would be the SQL Server or the Oracle JDBC driver. You'd want to put that in the lib directory. And then the log file is the other important one, where you can see all the logging information or when you're running it and stuff. Also, if anyone has any questions, I was hoping it wouldn't be like this. I was hoping it would kind of be more like in a table that we can kind of sit close by. But if you have any questions, just raise. Hey, Mike. Question.
Sorry, Mike.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, that's the version for JBoss or access methods for i2b2.
Does the version of JBoss matter?
Yeah.
Right now, so in the current version, 1.5, 1.6, it does matter that it's 4.2.2. We're releasing a new version, hopefully in the beginning of next year, which is 1.7. And 1.7 is we're going to have JBoss 7.1. We're going to upgrade Access 2 to 1.6.5, I think now. Also works with Oracle 11g and SQL Server 2012. So, but the next version, i2b2 1.7, is going to use a lot of the latest.
Does the current version support Oracle
11g?
Yeah.
Unofficially, yes.
So it still works?
Yeah, it still works. We have a lot of bamboo tests that we run, and so I'm still testing out to make sure 11g fully passes all our tests. But 10g is the kind of the official one that we know and guaranteed to work well. So JAX-B is another component that we're going to be learning about later today. JAX-B, so you have your database schemas, and then we'll look at this in the Eclipse. But the JAX-B takes the XML files and then converts them into object files. And this is especially used with web services because you'll be sending a message to the cell using a standard i2b2 format. JAX-B will take that, convert it into objects, so that the code, then you can then call it as an object, manipulate it how you want, and then you send a response back to the server, and then JAX-B will take that the new object and then convert it back into an XML that would be sent directly into access to be sent back to the client. So, and so, yeah, so currently so access to is the one that we use for receiving the message and sending the message back to the client. And then currently we're using 1.1.1, and as we just mentioned a little bit earlier, in version 1.7 of the next i2b2, we'll be using the latest 1.6.3 access to, which supports some of the latest servers. But access to has a lot of benefit: hot deploying, low memory use, and it's fairly quick and efficient. So, so Eclipse is another thing that we'll be using, because we'll be using Eclipse. It's actually for i2b2 it has two purposes. One is the SWT part, which is used in the client side. So the workbench is all based on SWT. That's another class. But for us, we're going to be using it as an IDE, integrated development environment, and so that will let us modify the Java code, run the build scripts, have it deploying to the server. And so just a quick, so once we start up the VM, all of the account passwords are demo user. So for the operating system, when you log in as root or demo, we'll be using demo. It's going to be demo user. The Oracle database system, which are the two admin, one's Oracle. And then when you actually log into the web client, we'll be using i2b2 or demo. There's also other accounts created in the Oracle database, like i2b2 demo data, i2b2 metadata, work data, Hive. All of those have the same password of demo user. Okay. So let's start. So with the VM that I know some of you have downloaded and installed, once you start it up, it will come up to here. And so we're going to log in as demo. Type in our demo user password. And then, so let's start off a little bit by just running the SQL developer. So, did everyone grab a pamphlet on the way in? Okay, so we're on page 16 right now. So we're going to go to Applications, use Programming, and SQL Developer. And this is the Oracle SQL Developer. So when you first install SQL Developer, it doesn't have all of these databases set up for you. I added them all into the tutorial for us. You can right-click New Connection and add it. But each one of these is an individual Oracle schema. The data repository is the CRC one. The i2b2 metadata is the ontology, the i2b2 PM, and the workplace. There's a fifth one called the i2b2 Hive, which actually I didn't add here, but we could easily add it. But basically, I wanted to show a little bit about the SQL developer so they can kind of, when you're developing your cell, the cell we're going to actually do doesn't use any of the database. But if you did create a cell, you could actually use this SQL developer to help you with whatever database needs you have. So you can run any type of select statement. Select star from the heading. Okay. observation fact. Where concept CD is equal to, there's an ICD-9 one, ICD, yeah, ICD-9.
ICD.
Oh, ICD? Okay, great. Thanks. I was kind of wondering, it's like, well, why is it nothing coming up? And it fetched 50 rows. If we minimize this. Then, so if we look at page 18, the i2b2 star schema. So right now we're looking at the middle one. And then this has your encounter num, your patient num, the concepts. This is, I did a like statement, so grab anything that had ICD-9 : after it. Your providers, the start date. This one has modifiers. So this is basically shows you like let you query the database and use it however you would like. But for this cell that we're going to create, so let's jump to Eclipse now and start looking at some of the Java code, and then we can run the create the server. So Eclipse is down here in the bottom left. So this has both the server and the tutorial in it. The tutorial is right here, the EDU Harvard i2b2 tutorial. It actually uses the commons, and it also uses the i2b2 XML. So the i2b2 XML has the XSD files, which are used for the JAXB and creating the objects. If we take a look at the cells, this has like the CRC, the file repository, IM. So if we take a look at, say, the PM one, and we just look at the XSD file, so for example, like if you do the get user configurations as one of the calls, this is the element name that's used by that, and then then the type is called get user configuration type. So if you go down to get user configuration type, get user configuration type. This is where you can pass in like the projects and what the data needed. The minimum occur means that 0 says that you don't need it, and the type is a string. You could actually have another type, like for example the user type. The type is users and then user. So you can have it nested so that in the XML it would, and then in this one the max is unbound, which is unlimited. But the XSDs, we'll be using that in a second. So if you take a quick look at the, spend a little bit of time in our tutorial. So the tutorial is based off the PFT example. And the PFT is also similar to like the workplace, the ontology, and the PM. So if we take a look at the, so let's maximize this for a second. So in the so you have the source core, which has all the actual the source files. The source test. This is has when you actually want to test it out. The gen source, which is the generated source from the build script. It will create these files, which is actually part of the access too. So this has like the body type, message header. This is when we do the build, it will be placed in the distribution. The etc. in here, access to. So you need to reference what the service name is going to be called. So in the services, am I going too fast for anyone following? So the service is XML. So in this service, it is called tutorial.service. So, and then this is so right here in the service class, this is the actual Java class file that will be called. So, and this needs to be referenced in the services.xml. So this services class right here, a tutorial service, is referenced right up here to tutorial service.java. So let me just continue going through the files, and then we'll go back and look at the actual the XSD right here. This is used for creating the Java JAX-B objects. So when you run when we run the build.xml, right over here, this package name edu hobbit i2b2 tutorial data.vo.pdl in our gen source right up here. It's right here. So what this is basically saying is, let's maximize this for a second. So what this is saying is that the high PDF, I'm here pointing, but actually should. Okay, so the high right here saying go back 3 directories into the XML directory, XML project, XSD high, PDL, i2b2 PDL, XSD. Use this XSD and then save all of that. Save all of the JAX-B generated code and place it in this directory. So if we take a look at this, and so we're looking for the Hive PDO. If we go down here, and if we go into Hive, PDO 1.1, right here. So we're taking this file, okay, which has the event set, concept set, and then we're going to save it into this data.vo. Data.vo right here, into this PDF. So if we open this up, we'll see, okay, so EID sets. And then EID set right up, so that's PDO set. EID set here. So you create your XSD, and then you would create your JB file for the binding, and you just reference those two, and then you would tell it where to actually save it. And then when we run the JAX-B when we run the build XML file, it creates all this gen source for us. And then the response message is the response that we send back. Okay. So the build.property files, the major components are the JBoss home and the i2b2 war.name. JBoss Home tells us when we run the build.xml, where do we actually want the AAR file and all our generated compiled server code to go. And so if you were to instead of installing like op JBoss 4.2.2, if you want to install into like say user local JBoss, you would want to change this home to point to that. And then the access to war is the name that is the name in the deploy directory of where the war file, where the unzipped war file is. So the build.xml. So we have the net, the clean, which basically removes any of the generated source and any of the build files that you created. The clean won't erase any of your source files. It will just create any of the generated gen source used by the JAXB that was created, and it will clean up anything in the distributed, which has the AAR file and the war files. The JAXB, right here, this is where you put in like what you want to have it create the JAXB generation. So for us, we wanted the PDO and the message, and then we need to set a response vector. So for us, this is the bare minimum is basically this. If you look at the ontology of the workplace, they'll have ones that are for the ontology of the workplace component. And if you use this to create your own cell, you can use this as a template and then just start adding in whatever your XSDs are for your code. And then this is just, so the compile is just dependent on the init and JAXB, and it just compiles it. The distribution right here, this will distribute your jar file they created on your and then it calls the access2.aar to then deploy the AAR file. And so this i2b2 common project, this is calling that the build.properties file and references that to point to that op JBoss or wherever you want to place it. And then so this right here, this uncalled target calls this one. And then this is basically creating a jar file that includes the services.xml that we had that we showed earlier from the meta end. And then we include this. This is saying, okay, which files to include in this AAR file. So we're just going to include everything in the web services stuff. So then the target deploy is basically now just the copy to. This is copy to the build-up properties, and then this is the build-up properties have the JBoss home, and so that would be in our case opt JBoss 4.2.2, and then in the server default deploy, and then drop in the disk, which is probably up there, which is at i2b2.war, and then copy in the AR file, and if it had client.java, in our case we don't. It would also include that. Exclude. It would not include these things that are displayed at the top. So let's do a little bit of running of the build file to see exactly how it works. So we're going to first by doing clean. So we go down right here. So we're going to run the clean, run as and build. So there's in Eclipse, if you just want, when you right-click on one of the outline components, like clean, and you say run as ant build or ant build dot dot dot. Ant build itself would just say run this one. Just whatever one you had selected, like in that case was clean, just run that. If you do ant build dot dot dot, it comes up and saves you a few minutes of. You can select multiple ones. So if you want to do clean, and then you wanted to do dist, and then if you want to do deploy, it added them in the bottom down here. So in our install documents, we say, okay, run ant clean, and then you run ant dist, and then ant deploy. This kind of does all of them in one shot. It will first do the clean, then it will run the dist, and then it will run the deploy. And those are from that build XML file that we kind of looked at earlier. But in that case, we're just gonna so we're just gonna run the clean and see exactly what got erased from our project. Okay. So get those successful. They ran the clean, and so now we're getting red stars. So now let's refresh everything. So now our gen source disappeared. The gen source was one of the JAX-B generated one, and so in the clean, that was one of the things. Just clean, get rid of it, because it's going to be generated every time. It's short for generated source. And then there was also a dist in here that was the distribution that also got cleaned up or removed. So now we're going to actually run the dist. So let's take a look and see exactly what it was doing. So what it was doing was it created the gen lib, it created the directory of dist, created the directory of gen source, and then the JAX-B generation using these XSDs and then writing the output to the tutorial gen source. So it recreated all of those Java files again for us. Compile it basically, so now that it has all the files that I needed, it will then compile those files. In this case, it's 48 source files. And then we're going to start building the job file, building the tutorial file. And the next one is the AR file, which was also built. So it hasn't actually copied anything to the opt.jboss yet. And we will do that in 1 second. So let's open up another window and look at the file structure. So if we go to opt.jboss 4.2.2 server default deploy. If we take a look at here, so what I did first for those following along is I did a CD into the directory. So I CD into opt.jboss server default deploy. And then what I did was I did an ls, which shows you all the files in the system. So we have this tutorial.i2b2.jar file, which was back in September. And then there's also, if we look a little up, there's the i2b2.war directory. This is the access to 1.1.1 war file that you get from Apache. You drop it, and you take that war file and you unzip it, and then you label it, or you rename it to i2b2.war. It's in the install documents. So let's take a look at that file, that directory. So if we go into here, CD, take a look, ls. actually ls. And then the web imp is where it is. So in here, there's going to be two components. One is in the services. So in the services, actually, it's just in the services. I was just thinking about 1.7 that has stuff in the lib directory. So for in 1.6, everything's in the services. And in here, there's a tutorial.var file, which is also labeled as September 22nd. So right now, all we've done is we've done a clean and we've done a disk, and we haven't actually changed anything on our server because currently this is the current date. So now we have a deploy. So we're going to run this one. Run as and build. Deploy is actually taking whatever we just generated and now setting it to where it was specified in the build file. And so in here, it copied one file into the deploy directory, and it copied one file into the i2b2 web in services. So, we jump back to, now if we do an ls of the services, we see our tutorial is now November 7th. And the file size is slightly different. Because I made a couple of changes. But yeah, so what we just what we did over here now got deployed into the actual JBoss directory. So now let's refresh this folder again. So we still have a couple of red areas right here, X. So if we take a look at this patient data message and find out what's going on, go down to here, and then we're looking at this observation set. So if you click right here, it says, okay, syntax error. Okay, so it basically is telling us that the source level is 1.5 or greater. So what do we actually run? So Java conversion. So we are actually on 1.7. So it should be, we have the latest version. Eclipse, what you need to do is go down to, I've experienced this a lot with Eclipse. So you go into properties, and then you go into the build style. Let's see, build Java compiler, and then right here, 1.4. So Eclipse is saying, okay, I'm going to think about everything in the 1.4 realm. Even though the Java is 1.7 and it is greater than 1.4, Eclipse is saying, I'm only going to think about 1.4. So we open this up and we're going to upgrade this. We can say 1.5. It was saying minimum 1.5, so it's fine. So we set that to 1.5, and then the compile's going to rebuild everything. Fine. Rebuilding. And so now it understands this using that, setting that object of observation set as a list. And then if we go down, everything else is cleaned up. So let's go through a little bit of these files and see how they actually relate. So tutorial services. So this was a tutorial services. Was the one that was referenced in that in the access to meta and services. So in here, so when access to is going to read the services file and be like, okay, I need the services class, get So if someone does a call with get tutorial data, okay, it needs to know what the services class is. Where is the main Java file that's going to get used? And so this is basically referencing the one that what it is. So if you were to create a new cell, you would want to have this as your main entry, and it could be anything. It could be edu.northwestern.i2b2. My new cell. Dot whatever. Dot Java file. But in our case, it's tutorial services. So take a look at the tutorial services. Okay. So it's passing in an OM element and it's returning an OM element. And the get tutorial data is the actual service name that's being used. When we actually run this in Firefox, we'll look at the get tutorial data. Okay, so we're doing a little bit of debug logging. We need to return an OM element, so we need to initialize an OM element. And then the data coming in, this get tutorial data element, we need to make sure that it's not null. And if it is null, then we're going to throw an i2b2 exception, which is part of the comment, which is part of the i2b2 comment. We include some exceptions, some JAXB stuff. So. Right here, this patient data message, get request message type. This is calling that JAXB object based on the i2b2 XML message. If we were to look at the XML file, and then traverse down, you get the response wait time in milliseconds, and let's look at this for a second. Just get an XML file. So a quick look at one i2b2 message where we have like the data. Okay, so this is calling the workplace and saying get folders by user ID, but the response back. So for hours, oh, sorry. We'll send you to the server. So right here, this is. So in our request header, the request wait time MF of 180,000. We take a look back at right here. Get message type and then. Okay. So basically, this get request wait time MS reference is right here. And because that's the header. Get request header. This is a request header, and then get wait time MS. Wait time MS. Any of the underscores got JAXB will then convert them to uppercase letters. So it will remove any of these underscores, and then whatever the next letter is, in this case like an M, gets automatically sent to uppercase. So, and this is using the JAXB. So basically what we're getting is wait time of this 180 seconds. So.
Sorry, Mike.
Yep.
How to get to the Firefox to see the XML message?
What'd you say?
How to get to the XML messages?
Oh, how did I actually get to this?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I was using Firefox, okay? And then there's something called Firebug. It's an extension into, it's like a little plugin, yeah, extension plugin into Firefox. And so Firebug lets you, look at like the actual HTML code of the components. But if you went to net, and then net will then show you all the files that are being retrieved when you make a call. So if you, for our case, we had to get the Yahoo.js, the event.js. So it gets all the files. It also tells you like how long it took, the size of it, where it actually got it from. This 192.168, that's that's the VM. So when you install the VM, you can actually just reference it locally. But to get to actually what I had done, there was a post down here. So there was a post of the index.php, which is that little proxy file that's in the web services. So that proxy file, what was posted was this XML, this i2b2 message. What got back was this response. Okay? And so, and this is the folder shared and demo. This is the workplace cell. Google Chrome also has a similar one. It's called Advanced REST Client, where you can actually paste in this XML message. You specify where you actually want to send it, and you put in the URL in the services, and then it will send you back the response. It does exactly the same thing. It's just a little easier to use. Okay. Did that answer? Okay, cool. Okay, so we were. So we did all this JAXB generation, calling these classes to get this wait time. What's this wait time for in our case? What this wait time is of 180,000 is basically used for is to say how long is this request gonna, how long are we gonna allow the request to run for? So this is where we get into the threading. So we start a new threading using the execute runnable. Okay. The input string of what was sent in, this stuff, this. And then put the output string. But it's right here. So if the wait time is greater than 0, which in our case it was already, it was 180,000. We're gonna thread that wait for 180,000. So it's gonna wait for that amount of milliseconds for the request to continue. So for the request to complete. And if it doesn't complete in that time, we're going to automatically just send back a message saying that we tried and it didn't complete in this amount of time. In our case, when we send a little message and get it back, it's always going to come back in that 180 in that time frame. But for other cells like the CRC, this is extremely important because you do a huge query and you want something back in a certain amount of time, whether it's completed it or whether it's been queued and it will eventually get done. So that's why I put this in here. So if you were to use this as a template for another project, you'd want to have this in here. So the tutorial service, basically all it does is it sets up the project and how it's going to be. So let's take a look at the execute runnable and see what is in here. Okay, so this implements a runnable, which is one of the Java components. But in here is mainly just getters and setters. So we're basically setting like the job complete. We're setting it by default to say, okay, has it been completed yet? And then someone else will be the one to actually set it. And then we have our exceptions, the input string and the output string. And then we actually call, when it calls the runnable, this is actually where it's going to then call this tutorial helper.extract tutorial, and then we're going to pass in the input strings. And then at that point, once this completes this call, then we're going to set this set job complete flag to true. And then once that's been set to true, it falls out of this if statement right here. So we're basically going around, we're waiting to see if it's such a false, and then we jump out and send that response back. And this is where it sends it back. But if we take a look, so now we've had the execute runnable, we have the tutorial services that calls the execute runnable run, which then calls this tutorial helper. Which is right here, the tutorial helper. But let's just take a quick look at a couple of the other files before we get into this, because this tutorial helper is actually the one that has all of the business logic of how our cell is going to work. The JAXB constants. So when we ran the build.xml and we built a bunch of Java files based off of the JAXB, in our code, we actually have to tell the code, okay, what are the packages that we're going to use? And so right here, this is where we're saying what the actual packages are that's going to get used. If you don't have this, then when you try to actually run, everything will compile fine and deploy, but as soon as you send a message, it's going to get, you're going to get a JAXB error, because it's going to try to take that XML file that was sent to it. It's going to try to convert that XML into JAXB, into objects, but it won't know how to actually unpause it at that time. So this is a key component. And this is usually where, this part is usually where I mess up when I'm creating new cells. I usually mess up in this area. So the message pack. Create response element from string. Update operation pack. Create body type. Create response message. So the message factory is basically a factory that will create your OM elements that will get sent back to the response. So so take a look at, okay, so if we have the application type of tutorial cell, so if we take a look at the response getting sent back for this one, okay, we have application type. We're gonna, so if we take a look at the send application, so sending application, and we take a look at the sending application. I know it says workplace cell and it says tutorial cell, but this is where that would be set. So when you're sending the response back, when we run ours, we'll see that it will say tutorial cell and 1.5. And then like the 2.4 is right here, the 2.4, the 1.1, the 1.1. So this is basically building up what the response message will be. And so this is the message header type, and this is the message header type. From here all the way to here. So this creating a message header. I kind of wish I had like 2 screens or something. So this, right here, this is just creating that whole message header. So if you were to create another cell based on this, you could easily reuse all of this. Just grab all this message header, because this will be all consistent. It also has like the security information, like the project ID. Are there any questions? So, the response message type. This is now then called. This is so the earlier part that had the create message header. That was just to create this section. The create response message. This is everything. So this creates a whole message response. And then we include the message type, we include the message body, which is, in this case, right here. Okay. And then the response header, which is right here. So if we look at our, looking at the XML, the response XML, there are 3 components: the message header, the response header, and then the message body. Right here in the creating the message response, we have the same. Okay, we have the same 3: the message header, the message body, and the message response. So, and then the message body is it would be based on your cell. And so in this workplace, this is like the 2 folders that are shown. The message header is i2b2 information like this security stuff. The response header is the response sent back. So status type of done is everything was completed fine, and then in this case it was a workplace processing. You can have other response type like error or processing. If it was error, then most likely you might or might not have a body, but then the clients look at this response type, and if it says error, then they will then sometimes they may display whatever error was in here, or they would just however the client process is set up to process different responses coming back. helper. So the tutorial helper now. So in here, there is two methods. The extract tutorial will be passing in the request message. So okay, so first, so in here, so we're initializing our response, so we're going to send that. We first verify that the request coming in is not is not null. If it is null, then we set the error message, and then we do our response message. And then this would be like that status I looked at a little bit earlier. This is actually building error message response and passing the error. So let's just look at that. So we're looking for a do build error response. You just have to be right here. Okay, so this is in that response I had done earlier. This one would then set an error as the response, and what you'd be passing in within that XML would be that error message. So, if we were not to something, if we did not include a message, then that would be the error that would be found. Otherwise, we're going to start. Otherwise, we're going to basically grab the observation from that in our response that we send in, and we're going to get set that string to the tutorial report. And if the tutorial report is null, then we're going to generate another error saying that it was basically null. Provided that is not null, then what we're going to do is we're going to call this extract observation from tutorial, passing that observation back in the tutorial report. So, which is right here. So we've gone through multiple layers, starting from the tutorial. Actually, starting from that XML file, the XML file that called the tutorial services, using the execute runnable based off the JAX-B to finally get to where we're actually doing some business logic. So we've gone through multiple different files. Finally, at this point, this is doing the regular expression. So basically what it's regex, and if it comes in as name is with something, we're going to rename it to name is star, and then we're going to send that back. So this is what our little tutorial, our little example, regular expression is. So that tutorial section. So yeah, so this is just a sample in that. In the folder, there was tutorial response and tutorial sample XML. These are just XML files, sample XML files of what it would look like. We'll actually be doing a real one. But in here, again, we have our message header, all the way going right, ending here. The request header specifying that how long we want to wait, and then the message body. So in here, we're going to be sending an observation, again, patient ID, and then in the observation log, it's saying, hello, my name is Mike. Based on this tutorial response, based on the tutorial helper. If it finds in that observation set, basically in the blob, so you have the observation fact, and then okay, yeah, so yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is tutorial report right here. This was saying get the observation blob, get the first content in it. So, and looking at the sample, the observation blob right here. So it's hello, my name is Mike. So that is what's actually being sent into this tutorial report, this string value. And then that is being called into extract observation from the tutorial. So that string, hello, my name is Mike, is getting passed into this tutorial report. And then this is where the JAXB generation, not the JAXB, the regular expression is being done, where it's replacing that hello. On the VM, when you start up the VM, it automatically start like Oracle, it'll start up JBoss, it'll start up Apache, and running that. So some of this stuff, if you actually deploy the i2b2 onto one of your servers, this will be useful information. So if we go into the etc init.d, take a look in this folder. There is a bunch of files, okay? And so these are all different services that are on the CentOS. Oracle XD, this will start your Express edition. This is like SSHD starts the SSH daemon. NTP is the network time, and JBoss will start JBoss. So when you run the RPM to install the Oracle, it will install the Oracle XC. For JBoss, there is no RPM to install it. It's a zip file. So this JBoss right here is the same JBoss on JBoss bin. So in the JBoss bin is a JBoss init Red Hat. Red Hat's the same as CentOS. So all I did was I copied this file and then I copied it into the etc init.d and renamed it to JBoss. So that's what you do. So if you would install, if you wanted i2b2 to automatically start up on your servers, when you restart it on your production environments or your development, you would take the JBoss init sh file, you copy it to the etc init.d, and make sure it's the execute is still there. And then if we look at it, it's the file name. The file is the same one. This is just their comments about it. You might need to change this. Make sure that points to where your Java home is, and then the user that will actually be running it. Recommend you don't run this as root. Make another user and run it as that. Because we're doing everything as a user demo, it's demo. but you could do it as like create a user called JBoss or whatever one. The other important component is where you actually have your JDK, and then pretty sure this is out. This is just a binary 000. This is needed for the broadcasting, and so the rest of this is all the standard what was in the original file, the start and the stop. So once you place that file into the init.d, then you also need to put it into the RC file, in the RC directories. So in the etc directory, there's RC3 and 5, which are the two that I put in. So you take a look at, if you look at RC3, this is, so that's the init levels of CentOS. All I did was, so we have our JBoss. So you have S99 and like S12, 13, 15. S is start. S stands for start, and then it goes by the number. So it'll first, and it goes below the high. So we'll start with 12, 13, 15, 22, all the way up to 99. So I wanted everything else started before I started JBoss, because I want to make sure the networking is set up. I want to make sure Oracle is already set up. So that's why I was like, okay, because Oracle's 80. So make sure Oracle's set up first. Everything is set up before I start up JBoss. And so I said that for 99 is the very last thing to do. And all it is a symbolic link to that file. So it's a standard LN to make the link. So that's all. That's what's needed to have i2b2 startup on your servers. The other thing that was done is, if we take a look at getting a mess. If we take a look at this message again. The web client timed out and sent us back, so that's why we lost. So in our post right here, we are calling we're calling this URL 128/i2b2/rest. So JBoss is actually running on port 8080. So the way I was able to get around this you could okay, so let's just copy this for a second. Over here, get schemes, which is fine. You can also do 99. So this the second one I did, which was calling using port 9090, and then this one is using without a port. They're both going to the same location. It's just this one is going directly into directly calling JBoss directly. This one, without the port, is going through Apache Web Service, the Apache Web Server, which is part of the CentOS install. And then for Apache Web Server, it's being redirected to JBoss internally, and then being sent back to the Apache Web Server, which is the preferred method of doing it on the production environment. You don't want to be calling directly to JBoss. You want JBoss to be kind of in the background, and then having a front end of a web service that can handle the requests more efficiently. So the way that was done was in the HTTP, the CompD. So we're in Etsy HTTP CompD, which HTTP is the Apache web server. It's Etsy HTTP conf, and then if we look at the last end of it, this proxy path. This is the AGP port. It's not the HTTP, it's the AGP, but it's 8009. So what this is saying is if when a request comes in for /i2b2, redirect it to the AGP or the JBoss /i2b2. So in ours, so in this /i2b2 right here, Apache Web Server said, okay, now that you sent me to i2b2, I'm going to redirect internally, send it to JBoss, have it do all the work, send back, and then send that back to that client. So mainly what this is so these two components is what you would use in your production environment. You'd want to do some type of proxy path, and the other thing is you also want JBoss to start up and shut down automatically whenever the server gets like restarted without you personally stopping and starting. You can still do these like JBoss, bin, like run. You can, if JBoss wasn't running, you still can run JBoss in the following method. But the init script just allows the services to run automatically. So that's a little bit about the server environment. Okay. Okay, so in the tutorial, so I just switched back to clips. We're going to go a little bit into the client side, the web client, and then we're going to after that, then we're going to try running it on the web client. So in the clips, switch workplace, and then so this is on the client code, the web client. Actually, before we do that, we'll quickly just do the verify that the server is really there. So Firefox is actually on the VM. So we're starting up for Firefox. We're gonna do like localhost /i2b2. This will bring us into access to into access. And then the services. This will show us. So another little fun thing with access too is sometimes when it gets the HTML back, it will just display it as HTML. This is a Firefox thing sometimes. So let's try doing maybe this one's cleaner. So we'll do a little bit of reading of HTML. So right here, the services, the tutorial service. So if we look here, it actually did deploy the tutorial service successfully. I wish I would actually wasn't in showing the actual HTML, but so let's jump back and take a look at the client code. So switch workspace, and then in here, so you'll notice there were two of them, the web client and HTML. We want the top one, the raw www.html. Okay, so this is now we're actually looking at the actual web client source code, where you have like the default HTML, which is the main HTML file that generates the web client. The i2b2 config data, JS. This is where you would specify like where the PM is located, the domain, whether you want to allow debug or not allow debug. So, the web client is in the JS i2b2. In here, there's the major two is the cell and the hives. So in the cell, we have like the CRC, the ontology, the PM and work. Take a look at that. It's the work. This work right here will create like the workplace view in the web client. But for us, we wanted to create a plugin that would be part of the web client. So this is where you put them into the plugins, and then you can either have them in the examples or the standard. This one, for us, we did it as in the example. So in the tutorial, there's a few files in it. So the cell config data, we'll go through them. This basically tells you which files are you going which Java file, JavaScript files are we going to load up. What CSS file, the cascading style sheets, that's to create the fonts and the colors. When it's displayed, what like the short name of it, where it's going to be located, some icons, and the other important aspect is right here, the source, the injected screen HTML. What the HTML file is that you're going to load up to make the view. So we take a look at what we need. So we're back to the web client, and then if we go to the analysis tools, and then the plugins, we have a tutorial right here. And then, so we have something in here that says, okay, enter a note in the box below, then click the view, etc. So let's take a look and find out where that is in relation. So that will be in the injected screens HTML. So in here, in the folder, you have the injected screens HTML. So a little bit more HTML, but right here, there's in this div class, enter a note in the box below. That is referring to right here. Enter a note in the box below. So if we were to do something like this, we were to change this. Enter an ABC in the box below. We're going to save it, Control S. And we're going to go back to the Firefox. Whenever you make any changes to the web client, it's best if you just clear your recent history, because it will load up the, it kind of holds on to a JavaScript file sometimes. So I usually just completely clear it, and then do like a shift, hold down your shift and do a reload, click on the reload, and that will hopefully do a complete reload. So now we're going to go back into the analysis tools, go to the tutorial, and then we have ABCD. So just like how to kind of change things. In the text area, we have "Hello, my name is Mike." That's right here. This is that text area. And so all of that is in the main content right here. And then in this main content, so right here there's three tabs: tutorial tab 0, 1, and 2, which corresponds to these three tabs: the enter note, view results, and the plugin help. Right here, the plugin help, view results, and enter notes. And then each of these divs right here represents each of those three tabs. And then this is like the help. And then this is the response. And that was the response. And so if you just notice what I just did, I kind of grabbed something and then I kind of rearranged the screen a little bit. You can try to bring it back to what it was. Usually in that case, when I do that, I usually just go to like reset, and I just bring it back to the normal default values. Okay. So the injected screen HTML is that will be like how you want to set up the UI and the look and feel of your plugin. So going back to the main component, the cell config data. So the major two JS files, the tutorial control and the i2b2 message. So the i2b2 message, if you look at this, it has what looks like a big i2b2 message. The web client, because it needs to send XML to the server, doesn't have the JAX-B generations that the Java side has. So for the web client, we actually just create the actual, what the XML file would look like. And then we kind of put in these special parameters, this request string with these brackets, that the JavaScript will then put in what the values are. So the i2b2 message is JavaScript file. Is basically these are just the XML messages that will get sent to the server. In our case, we just have one. In some cases, like the workplace, it has multiple, and the CRC has like even more. And each one, looking at it, would just be one after the other. So the control JS file. So you have like the unload and results. So the get results function is the one that actually will make the call to the server and then get the a response back, and then toss out that piece of the T-val. So this is saying do the callback, and then results coming back of the T-val. And then right here, this plug-in text tutorial request is referencing right here, this tutorial request. So this is what's actually making the call to the CRC communicator. So that's really the web client side of it. If you're to create a new plugin, this is kind of like the bare minimum that's needed. You need some type of like HTML UI look and feel. You need something that will send the messages back and forth to the cell. The cell config basically tells which files are needed, and then the control is what's going to be done. In this case, it's just taking something and sending something back, and then just grabbing the T-val app. In the control, for like the CRC, you have a more elaborate, like it pausing stuff, reading things, and taking values, changing them, displaying other components. But in this case, it's just that. So let's try. So now that we've created the cell, we've created the server cell, we've deployed that. We have the tutorial cell up and running, which we made a small change. It looks like that's working fine. The only thing I think I want to do is I want those little XML things over here. The little XML icon. So let's enable that. So that is in the config data. Config data. Right now it's set to the debug is set to false. Re-enable debug, and then you'll notice that just a little eclipse thing. There's an asterisk here now. Whenever an asterisk appears, it means that the file was modified. So as soon as I do my Control S, it now just saved it and my little asterisk disappeared. So that's been saved. So now I'm gonna clear my cache again. Here, reload. I'm gonna log in. And so now I have my little XML message. I have my little XML icon. I also got a message log up here. So this message log just shows you the XML messages coming back and forth. So in our get user authentication that we sent, we got back the project, the cell data. So we have a CRC, the file repository, we have the ecology, the workplace. Okay. The only one we're missing now is our tutorial one. So let's add our tutorial. Because right now, if we were going to the tutorial and try to run it, and say view results, it has a please wait with the little icon. See our plugin tutorial requests. We sent our request, and we got the proxy as we used to relay error. Basically, they didn't know what to do with that because redirect URL is undefined because that tutorial cell is not registered yet. So that was So that's where we're at on the admin section. So we'll go to the admin. Yeah. So we're going to log in to the admin screen. Take a look at our managed cells. We currently have those 4. We need to add a new cell. Okay, the cell ID is TUR, tutorial. Okay, tutorial cell. And then these changes. HTTP:// okay, so the cell URL will be the actual IP for your VM. On my Mac, that's what it was 192.168.136.128. It might not be the same on yours, so we need to figure out what yours is. So we'll go back to the VM, and then so if config -A, if config just in Unix says what is your IP address, or what's the configuration for your devices. So ETH0 is the server, is the interface for your Ethernet. But what we're really interested in is this number right here, it's INET address, and for me it's 192.168.136.128. That's the IP address of this CentOS instance. So yeah, so run that. We'll grab that number, and then back to the admin page. So you put in your number / i2b2 REST tutorial service, and the path is just a /. The method is going to be REST. So this references that XML file, or this tells access to that, which XML file to grab. Try not to hit cancel. Try this again. Tutorial. Save this. So then if we click on our manage cells, we now have the tutorial cell, and then right URL. So if we go back to our web client, log out, log back in, check our messages. See what it's set this time. So we have in the cell day we have a CSC, the file repository ontology, and we now have a new one, a tutorial cell, pointing to the URL that we care about. So if we go back into the analysis tools, jump over to our tutorial. Hello, my name is Mike. And then if we click